I'm going to tell you something I've never said out loud to anyone who wasn't already in the room when it happened. I cried in a bathroom at work. Not the kind of crying where your eyes get a little wet and you blink it away. I mean, I sat down on the floor with my back against the cold tile wall, and I sobbed in a way I hadn't sobbed since I was a kid, with my whole chest, the kind that makes noise whether you want it to or not. I had a court summons in my hands, and I was sitting on the floor of the women's bathroom on the third floor of the office building where I work, and I was shaking. That was March 2025. I was 29 years old. I had a career, I had a savings account with actual money in it for the first time in my life. I had a man I was planning to say yes to. I had a little sister who was thriving at a university on a merit scholarship with a 3.9 GPA. And some debt collection company I'd never heard of was suing me for over $90,000. Money I never spent on accounts I never opened because of a woman I hadn't seen in 11 years. Let me back up. I need to tell you about the night my mother left because everything else starts there. It was June 2014. I was 19. I had just finished my first semester at a community college in Atlanta, studying finance, which I was genuinely good at and genuinely loved. I had a plan. I always had a plan. I was the kind of girl who color-coded her notes and kept a 5-year roadmap written on a legal pad in her back pocket. My mom used to call me her little CEO, which embarrassed me at the time and which I have thought about since with a complicated kind of feeling I don't have a clean word for. I came home from hanging out with friends that evening and the apartment felt wrong before I even got inside. You know how a space can feel different, like something has been subtracted from it? I noticed it the moment I opened the door. Too quiet, the wrong kind of quiet. The note was on the kitchen table. I won't repeat everything it said. The short version is, I can't do this anymore. Take care of your sister. I'm sorry. She had taken the emergency cash we kept in the kitchen drawer, over $2,000 that my grandmother had left us. She had taken a bag. She had taken herself. What she left behind was a stack of unpaid bills, a refrigerator with 2 days of groceries in it, and my 7-year-old sister, Chloe, asleep in her room with her nightlight on, holding the stuffed bear she'd had since she was 3, with absolutely no idea that her world had just quietly caved in. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time. I'm not sure how long. I remember the refrigerator humming. I remember a car going by outside. I remember looking at that note and reading it again, and then folding it and putting it in my pocket and sitting there in the silence trying to understand what I was supposed to do with it. Then I went to Chloe's room and sat on the edge of her bed. She woke up like little kids do, all at once, suddenly, blinking at me. Natalie, where's Mama? I picked her up and held her against my chest, and she was so small. She was so completely small, and she wrapped her arms around my neck with total trust, the way kids do when they still believe adults have everything handled. Mama had to go away for a little while, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. But I'm here. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere, okay? I promise. She went to sleep in about 4 minutes. I did not sleep at all. I'll be honest with you about something. The first week after she left, the hardest part wasn't the money. The money was a disaster, but it was a practical disaster, and I could make lists about practical disasters and work through them item by item. The hardest part was that a woman from Georgia's Child Services showed up to our door about 6 weeks later and essentially told me, in the kindest possible way, that she needed to assess whether I was capable of raising a child. I was 19. She was right to ask, but sitting across from that woman, knowing that one wrong answer, one unstable-looking thing in our apartment, one missed utility payment, any of it could result in Chloe disappearing into the foster system and me never seeing her again, That fear is what I ran on for the better part of 3 years. It was fuel, but it was not clean fuel. I woke up at 3 a.m. running calculations in my head more times than I can count. I got a job at a distribution center, early morning shift, and a second job waitressing on weekends. Between the two, after rent and utilities, Chloe and I had less than $500 a month for everything else. Groceries, gas, her school supplies, her doctor, all of it. I ate a lot of peanut butter toast. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm saying it because it's true, and because I need you to understand what I mean when I talk about what came later. Chloe never knew. I made sure of that. She had real meals. She had clean clothes. She thought shopping at Goodwill was something we did for fun because we liked the treasure hunt aspect of it. I was very deliberate about that. I needed her childhood to feel like a childhood, even if mine had effectively ended. She thrived, by the way. I want to be clear about that. Chloe was not a child defined by what happened to her. She was curious and funny and relentlessly hardworking. And every parent-teacher conference I attended, and I attended every single one, her teachers would tell me something that made me drive home feeling like maybe we were actually going to be okay. The years moved. I won't walk you through every one of them because we'd be here all day, but the shape of it is this. Things got harder before they got easier, and then, very slowly, they got easier. I re-enrolled in college one class at a time when Chloe was old enough that I didn't need to be home by 3 p.m. every day. It took me 4 years to finish a 2-year degree. I graduated with an associate's in finance in 2021, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you that diploma arriving in a cardboard tube in the mail made me stand in the middle of my kitchen for a solid minute just holding it. Then I went inside. And by 2024, Chloe had gotten into Vanderbilt, pre-nursing, partial merit scholarship. She called me from school to tell me, and I had to pull my car over on the highway because I genuinely could not see the road. By early 2025, I had money in a savings account for the first time in my adult life. I had met a man named Marcus who was, without question, the best person I'd ever encountered, and we were looking at houses together. My credit score was sitting comfortably above 700. I was, for the first time in 11 years, genuinely not afraid of what tomorrow was going to cost me. I thought about my mother sometimes. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Not with longing exactly, more like the way you think about a scar. You notice it, you know where it came from, you've stopped expecting it to disappear. I had not heard from her in 11 years. I should have known that silence wasn't the same thing as gone. The letters started in March 2025. First one was from a medical collections company. Apparently, my mother had received emergency surgery at a hospital in Memphis in 2021 and had listed me as her financially responsible emergency contact, an address I'd been at since 2019. The balance they were coming after me for was over $30,000. I thought it was a mistake, an administrative error. I called them, explained the situation, and was told in a tone that managed to be both apologetic and completely indifferent that they were simply following standard procedure. I hung up. I filed the letter. I told myself it would get sorted out. Then another letter arrived. Then 2 more. Then 3 in 1 week. Medical debt, credit card debt, luxury hotels, airline upgrades, casino charges, a personal loan from a lender in Tennessee, and the one that actually made me stand up from my desk and walk to the window and just stare out at the Atlanta skyline for a while. A government small business loan from 2020 taken out in my name for a fictitious bookkeeping business that had never existed, applied for with my social security number, my date of birth, and a signature that was supposed to be mine. I pulled my credit report that night. It had fallen by almost 150 points. There were accounts I had never opened. Tax returns filed in my name claiming Chloe as a dependent during years she was enrolled at Vanderbilt, and I had been her legal guardian for nearly a decade. And then the lawsuit arrived. That's what I was holding in the bathroom at work. A debt collection company had purchased all of this, all these fraudulent accounts stacked on top of each other, and was suing me for the total, plus interest, plus their fees. Over $90,000. I had 30 days to respond or they could start garnishing my wages. I called Marcus from the bathroom floor. "Come home," he said. "I'm at work." "Natalie, come home." I came home. I hired a private investigator. I want to tell you about what he found because this is the part of the story where I stopped being sad and started being something else entirely. He found my mother in 11 days. She was living in East Memphis under a different name. She had a condo. She drove a car she'd bought new 3 years ago. Her social media, under the new name, which I will not say out loud even now, showed a woman taking weekend trips, going to casinos, eating at nice restaurants. She was working part-time as a receptionist, which on paper looked like a modest income, but her lifestyle was being subsidized by something else. By me, as it turned out, for at least 4 years. There was surveillance footage of her using a fake ID with my name on it, bank records. A forensic handwriting expert later confirmed she had forged my signature on more than 20 separate documents. My phone records proved I was in Atlanta every single time she was supposedly me somewhere in Tennessee. She hadn't left us because she was broken. She left us to start over, and she kept my identity as a backup credit line. For 4 years, while I was building something from nothing, scraping together a savings account dollar by dollar, she was in Memphis opening accounts in my name and posting vacation photos on the internet. I want to be careful about how I describe what I felt when I found this out, because I've thought about it a lot, and I still don't have one clean word for it. It wasn't rage exactly. It was more like a door opening somewhere in my chest and a long, cold wind coming through it. The particular grief of understanding that someone didn't leave you because they were broken. They left you because they were useful, and they found a way to keep using you from a distance without you ever knowing. My attorney's name is Renata, and she is one of the best human beings I have encountered in my life, and I say that as someone with a professional obligation to evaluate people's credibility. She looked at the evidence and told me 3 things. First, I had an exceptionally strong case. Second, we weren't just defending, we were countersuing the debt collection company for buying fraudulent accounts without doing a single verification check, which is a violation of federal consumer protection law. Third, I've handled a lot of these cases, Natalie. I want you to understand something. The goal here isn't just to make this go away. The goal is to make sure everyone involved understands exactly what happened and who is responsible for it. I liked her immediately. Marcus covered a significant portion of the legal retainer without being asked about and without making it a conversation I had to feel feelings about. He just put the check on the table and said, "You've been carrying things alone your whole life. That stops now." My supervisor at work quietly advanced me money against my salary. Colleagues I'd known for 3 years organized a private fundraiser. Carol, the child services worker who had come to our door back in 2014 and who had improbably stayed loosely in touch over the years, called to testify. Even Chloe drove up from Nashville, which I told her not to do and which she ignored completely, which is on brand for Chloe. I got my mother on a video deposition. Renata coordinated with courts in Tennessee to compel her testimony. She sat in a conference room in Memphis with her attorney and she answered questions on camera. I watched it the night Renata sent it to me. Renata asked her directly, "Did you open these accounts in Natalie's name without her knowledge?" There was a long pause. She said she had been in a difficult financial situation. She said she had planned to pay it back. She said, and I want you to really sit with this, that she had needed to preserve her own financial security. Her financial security, while I was eating peanut butter toast. I closed the laptop and sat at the kitchen table for a while without saying anything, and Marcus sat across from me and didn't try to fill the silence, and that was exactly the right thing to do. The trial itself, I'll be honest, the day of was one of the stranger experiences of my life. I had never been in a courtroom before. I had watched enough legal dramas to have a vague sense of the choreography, but the reality of it is different. The ceilings are higher than you expect. Your footsteps echo. Everything feels slightly slowed down, like the air is thicker. Chloe and Marcus were in the front row. Carol was a few rows back. Some coworkers had taken personal days to be there. I did not expect that. When I turned around and saw them, I had to face forward again quickly because the courtroom is not the place you want to lose your composure. Renata was extraordinary. The other side's attorney tried to argue that emergency contact designations carry legal weight and that family financial obligations don't disappear because of difficult circumstances. Renata systematically dismantled every piece of that argument using their own witnesses. Their document specialist couldn't explain the signature inconsistencies. Their compliance officer admitted they'd never verified a single application location, employment claim, or signature before purchasing the debt portfolio. "You relied on a social security number match?" Renata asked. "That's standard industry practice," he said. "It's standard," Renata said, "yes." The judge's expression said the rest. When it was my turn to testify, Renata had coached me to tell the truth without performing it. Just say what happened. Let it be what it is. So I did. I told them about Chloe asleep in her room with her nightlight on. I told them about 2 jobs and peanut butter toast and the child services worker at the door. I told them what it took to build what I'd built and what it felt like to find out that someone had been quietly taking a blade to the foundation the whole time. I told them that this company had purchased fraudulent debt and named me as the defendant without checking a single document. That if their judgment stood, my sister would lose her financial aid and I would lose a decade of work, not because of anything I did, but because of what was done to me, and because they couldn't be bothered to look. I don't know exactly what the judge was thinking during all of this. Judges are professionally very hard to read. But when it was over and she had deliberated and she came back and read her ruling, dismissal, with prejudice, no liability, full vindication, plus a referral of the collection company's practices to the state's Consumer Protection Division, she looked at me before she closed the folder and said something I have thought about many times since. She said, "You have been failed by a parent and targeted by a system that didn't do its job. The record today reflects that neither failure is your responsibility." I did not hold it together after that. I'm not going to pretend I did. The aftermath came faster than I expected. The collection companies settled our counterclaim within a few months, paid back all our legal costs plus damages, essentially writing a check to acknowledge they had done something wrong. Our civil case against my mother resulted in a lien against her condo equity. The state of Tennessee filed criminal charges. She eventually pleaded guilty and received probation, mandatory restitution to me, and a federal fraud record that will follow her for the rest of her life. My credit score came back. Chloe's financial hold at Vanderbilt was cleared within 2 days. She called me when it went through and was quiet for a long moment before she said, "I'm going to be the best nurse who ever existed, Natalie. I swear to you." We bought a house in the spring of 2026, Marcus and I. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a porch where we drink coffee in the mornings. The mortgage payment is less than what I paid in rent back in 2014 when I was trying to keep a 7-year-old fed and housed on $500 a month. I got promoted. I started doing consulting work on the side, helping other identity theft victims, because it turns out that experience, as brutal as it was, translated into a specific and useful skill set. Marcus and I got married that summer. Chloe was maid of honor, and her toast made everyone in the room cry, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Here's the thing I want to leave you with, because people always ask me some version of how I got through it, and I want to give you an honest answer. I don't think it was strength exactly. I think it was stubbornness. I think it was the specific stubbornness of someone who made a promise to a 7-year-old in the dark and decided on some level that was below conscious thought that the promise was non-negotiable. Everything else was just problem-solving. My mother left us to start over. She wanted a clean slate. and she found a way to take mine in the process. And for a long time, I think some part of me believed, without quite knowing it, that she left because of something about us, something lacking, something that made us not worth staying for. Finding out the truth was terrible. I'm not going to dress it up. It was one of the worst weeks of my life to understand that the story I'd been telling myself, she left because she was struggling, she left because she was broken, was wrong. She left because she saw an opportunity, and she kept finding new ones. But here's what the truth also did. It took away the last piece of her that had still been living in me, that quiet guilt, that wondering. She didn't leave because we weren't enough. She left because she had already decided we were useful rather than real, and once I understood that, I didn't have to carry her anymore. The letters from her probation officer go through my attorney. I haven't read a single one. There's nothing left to take and nothing left to say. Last September, Chloe called me on a Tuesday evening. She'd just finished a clinical rotation in the pediatric ward. She told me about a little girl she'd worked with, 7 or 8 years old, who'd had a hard week and was scared, and how Chloe sat with her for an extra 20 minutes after her shift ended because she remembered what it felt like to be that age and need someone to stay. "You taught me that," she said. "You know that, right?" I was in my kitchen. Marcus was making dinner. The backyard light was on, and I could see the porch where we drink coffee in the mornings. "We taught each other," I said. Which is true. Which is, when I think about it, the whole story.